turn off after about 5 or 10 seconds. I'll say time again real strong.
Yeah, it's a 2-minute thing, 1 minute rebuttal opportunity if we have a rebuttal. And I'm only going to use that if there is a specific address of one of the candidates, or they get into.
You could also tell them just to get your attention and say, I want to rebut.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or just anything to speed it along is good. So.
I think I'm going to start trying to get the candidates up here on the stage.
I think we got a good little crowd here. So
I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Come on down like church, you know.
Candidates. Whoops. Candidates. Candidates. What the hell is this thing? Candidates. Mic's not working. There we go. Mic is working. What's this fuzzy for?
It's for this.
What's that for? Okay. All right. If we could get the candidates to go ahead and move up on stage, that would be the sheriffs, the county judges, and the state representative candidates. Get your handsome and beautiful smiling faces up here so everybody can enjoy the view for a few minutes. I don't think it matters where you sit. Look at here, Mike. How are you? Oh, well. I heard your house, but I didn't know you got hurt.
I was fine. I'm not a firefighter, apparently.
Yeah, well, I hated to hear that. That's some terrible news.
We lost our.
Nobody got hurt, though.
No, just me. We saved all the dogs. We had 2 baby calves in the house.
Goodness gracious, yeah, yeah.
Through all that mess. And we got good insurance. That's what I'm thankful
Not
for.
there. That's a good deal. Hey, Brittany, is there any order you want them to set in? Okay. All right. You ready to get started?
Glad you said so.
All right, it's 6:02. We're going to get started. It's good to see everybody come here. This is important, and I'm glad to see that our community is turning out. I know there's a lot of competition for your attention. I mean, it's Wednesday night, church night. There's basketball games, something going on. I think there's even a visitation possibly going on at this time, so there's a lot of competition for you. But this is important. And I want to express my appreciation to the candidates also before I turn it over to Brittany. It is not an easy thing to step out there and run for an office, to run for any office. And so I really appreciate these guys and gals stepping up and putting themselves out there. Putting themselves out there so that they can try to do what is right for this district. And I think you're going to find all of them are knowledgeable, all of them are capable, and that they would all do a good job in whatever office they're running for. Brittany, go ahead.
Thank y'all all for being here this evening. We are excited to be hosting this Meet the Candidate event tonight as part of our commitment to local journalism and civic engagement. Our goal this evening is to give all of the voters an opportunity to hear directly from all of these candidates tonight, to better understand their responsibilities of the office, and to do so in a respectful, structured setting. We believe that informed voters strengthen communities, and we appreciate both the candidates who are participating tonight and the community members that took the opportunity and the time to be here. Before we begin, the Waldron News would like to extend a sincere appreciation to the sponsors who helped make this event possible. Sponsorship assists with event-related costs and does not imply any endorsement or influence the questions, the format, or the editorial coverage of the forum. We'd like to thank our platinum sponsor, Farm Bureau, very much. Our gold sponsor, the Scott County Republican Party. Thank you guys very much for your sponsorship. Our silver sponsor, STI Sims. Wade, thank you very much. Bronze sponsor, Crystal Malloy for State Representative. We thank you as well. At this time, I would like to invite my partner, Roby Brock, to join me on stage to introduce tonight's moderator. Thank you all.
You see that, Brittany? That's how I generate my own applause right there. You start the applause for yourself, so it's good. I also want to reiterate how much I appreciate you all being out here and how much I appreciate the candidates being here today too. I'm Roby Brock, and I'm the new co-owner of the Waldron News along with Brittany, and I'm excited to be in the community here. I've got about 27 years of experience covering politics in Arkansas, and unfortunately I had about 10 years of experience before that actually working in politics in Arkansas. So I know what these candidates are going through. I know what folks that care about these candidates are going through. And so it's great to be here with you tonight. I want to welcome to the stage one person before we get moving on with the with our event tonight. I want to recognize Dan Wright, who is with the Arkansas Farm Bureau. He's their president for the umpteenth time, probably about the 40th time you've been reelected, I think, something like that. 3, all right. And I just want you to know from my years of covering the state capitol and working with the Farm Bureau, Dan's one of the most respected farmers and farm policy people in the state of Arkansas. To have their endorsement of this forum tonight is really, really big and says a lot about the Farm Bureau's commitment to good public policy. And so, Dan, I will welcome you up here to say a few words. Thank you.
Well, it's good to be home. My wife showed up a while ago. It's the first time I've seen her since Saturday. As president of Farm Bureau, I stayed gone quite a bit, and I left home Saturday, and I'll head back out in the morning, and won't come back till next Saturday. So we got a lot of things going on. But it is a privilege to be able to sponsor this event. You know, one thing about Farm Bureau is we look out for our communities. We are one of those organizations that care about what happens in our community, and it never fails. Every time I get up here to talk, somebody calls me. But one of the things that we do in our communities is we look out for each individual, not just our members, but rural Arkansas. And right now, rural Arkansas agriculturally is in turmoil. In my role as president, I see what's going on all over the state. On the eastern side of the state, farmers are just going broke. They're trying to do the products that they grow. And to give you an example, it's like you have a job and you get paid so much per hour, and you bring home that money at the end of the year and at the end of the month, and it's not nearly enough to pay your bills. That's what row crop farmers are going through out there right now. Their expenses are more than they're going to get paid on their crop. And you may ask, what does that have to do with us? We're on the western side. Why should we care? You better care. Because if they go broke, you don't eat. The livestock that we grow don't get the feed. They don't get the corn, they don't get the soybeans, and they're not able to eat without those folks. Without them, we'll be getting our food from Brazil and countries outside the United States. So that's why we should care. You know, we're sponsoring this thing. We're the main sponsor. One of the things that I want to hear from the candidates tonight is your views on agriculture. What do you see agriculture needs should be, and when you take office, how will you help promote agriculture in Scott County and in the legislature? But again, thank you all for being here. Marcus told me to keep my words very short. Coming from Marcus, you know, that's a big thing because he's actually heard me talk before, and I can go on for half an hour or an hour. But appreciate everybody doing this. Appreciate Roby, you all doing this. This is a great thing. And thank you all for coming, and I'll turn it back to you.
All right, before I introduce our sponsor, for our moderator tonight, I also want to give a big round of applause to Brittany Main. She has done a great job putting this forum together, so thank you, Brittany. I'm not going to spend much time introducing Marcus Richmond, the state representative, who about 12 people on this stage are wanting to replace. But term limits is a terrible thing, isn't it, Marcus? So anyhow, Marcus Richmond is, again, one of the most respected leaders in the state capitol here. And so you guys have had great representation for the last several years. And I've gotten to work with Marcus quite a bit, and I've always found him to be engaged and knowledgeable and very much caring for what goes on in his district. So I'm going to be your official timekeeper tonight, which means all of y'all on stage be watching me right in the middle seat right there. I'm going to keep you from going over. And Marcus, I'm going to hand over the program to you. And good luck, man. I've moderated a lot of these. It's all yours.
Thank you, appreciate it. We will get started. I certainly want to thank Roby and Brittany and the Waldron News. I can't tell you how happy I am that we've got a newspaper back in Waldron, Arkansas again. It really is good to see that. So, and thank you for the hard work that you do. It's not only a newspaper, it's a quality newspaper. You can go in there and you can find out what's going on, and I do appreciate that. And I'm glad that Dan mentioned that he has been gone since last Saturday, because when I saw his wife, she looked so sad, and I didn't know why. But now I understand. He's back on this thing. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the sheriffs. And sheriffs, you're going to be asked a question. I'll ask you a question. Oh, sorry, Brittany, what do you got? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Where's the band? Okay. We certainly don't want to start without honoring our country first. Would the band please come out and play the national anthem? And I will ask everybody to stand, and then when the national anthem is over with, I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. It's up to you guys now. Waldron Band, thank you. Flags over here. Thank you, Waldron Band. You did an excellent job. Now, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is to my right, to your left. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. We're going to be starting with the sheriffs. We've got a few rules we've got to go over before we do that to make sure that we have an understanding of what's going to be happening here. Our sheriff candidates, first of all, I want to say that we've got two candidates present. One candidate could not make it. He was in Little Rock for training, and he's not going to make it back, and that's Sheriff Randy Shores. I'm sure he wished that he could be here tonight, but it's just, again, a conflict that he could not avoid. Each candidate, we're going to have 4 questions and then 2 cross questions. That will be determined by who goes first by a flip of a coin. Let me look at some of my things here. Again, we do appreciate everybody being here this evening. Anything I miss? I think we're good. First thing, the monitor's got to get organized before anything else can happen. I believe also with the questions and everything that you have for the sheriffs, and the rest of you guys can take a moment and kind of relax and listen and see who you want to vote for sheriff. But for the sheriffs themselves, we've got, if you would, stand up, Mark Chapman, and then Jason Daggs. All right, thank you very much. Have a seat. And there is one thing else I want to do right quick before we continue, and that is, do we have any candidates? I think we got a few candidates out in the audience who's running for something. If you would, stand up, say your name, and tell us what you're running for.
Sherry Thompson, I'm running for Scott County Assessor on the Republican ticket.
And right here in front of you,
Taylor Steele, I am a Republican, I'm running for county commissioner.
next one back.
I'm Jamie Goff, and I'm running for JP District 5 unopposed.
Yes.
Roger Rick running for JP District 1.
Okay, everybody be sure you speak up. Use your command voice. Next two.
David Carter, Waldron City Council, Ward 1, Seat 2.
Okay. We got somebody else just stood up here.
Tabby Eldridge, City Clerk Treasurer.
Okay. Once you say it, you can go ahead and sit down. Go ahead.
Jeff Gilbert running for City Council for Waldron.
Okay.
Wayne Dickett running for reelection, City Council, Ward 3, Position 1.
All right. Last two back on the back.
Peter Hurt running for District 2 as JP.
Richard Hurt, I'm running for Scott County Treasurer.
Okay. Back here in the white. You.
Tara Brackett, JP District 9.
Okay. Next.
Kim Lane, I'm for Scott County Assessor and on the Republican ticket.
And you, sir.
I'm Chris Carmine, I'm running the JP for Scott County District 8 on the Republican ticket.
Is there anyone else that's running for an office that haven't had an opportunity to introduce themselves? All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started here.
You're good. I'm just gonna grab these.
Oh, okay. You're gonna hand them the questions? All right. You're gonna be handed, both sheriff candidates, you're gonna be handed the questions so that you don't have, you'll have them there in your hand. The only thing I can say is some of these questions are gonna change a little bit with how I ask them from what you're gonna read on the card. So just listen carefully on this.
After you ask it.
Okay, okay, got it. All right, question 1. This is entitled Law Enforcement Priorities in a Rural County. Scott County faces a wide range of public safety challenges, from drug-related offenses and property crimes to traffic safety and emergency response across a large rural area with limited resources. That's just the truth of the matter. As sheriff, how would you determine priorities for staffing, patrol coverage, and enforcement, and how do you balance proactive policing, responding to day-to-day calls for service? And we're going to start with Jason. Go ahead, Jason.
Like you said, Scott County is a rural county with limited resources. The sheriff has to be a working sheriff. You can't just be an administrator. You do have to get out and help your deputies, and you have to gain the trust of the public to give you information. And if the public does not trust you, then they're not going to give you much information to help.
Okay. Let's go ahead, Mark.
Can you hear me? I do agree with Jason, the sheriff does need to be a working sheriff. A few ideas I had is to go to a rotating Panama schedule where there's 2 deputies on, because there's 9 total, including the sheriff, so that'd give you 2 on days, 2 on nights. You would have to have a strategic plan on what areas you're gonna patrol at what time and try to balance the calls. I want to clarify, I mentioned having a minimum contact order for the deputies, and what that means is if a deputy works 12 hours, I expect him to make 6 contacts, not 6 tickets. Okay, let me clarify that. It's not tickets, it's contacts. That can be a vehicle assist, traffic stop, talking to somebody on the side of the road that's walking. What that does is that deputy is proactive then, and it also holds the deputy to account. I think you'd have to look at statistics as far as what areas need the most attention. Drug related, I would, if it's able, I know finances is another problem. I think we need a K-9. I think we need to be in the high school. I think we need to have a DARE program, and that's where I'm at.
Mark, you might as well stay up there because you're going to get the next question here on question number 2. This is jail operations, budget constraints, and accountability. The Sheriff's Office is responsible for operating the county jail, which often faces challenges related to staffing shortages, inmate medical costs, and overcrowding, issues that directly impact county budgets and public safety. How would you approach managing the jail responsibly, working with the quorum court on funding decisions, and ensuring accountability while operating within financial constraints?
Well, I think that the jail needs to be held accountable too, from dispatchers to jailers. I think training is very important. The lack of training and the high turnover rate, I think part of that is also scheduling, where I would have them on a rotating schedule too. Because what happens in a small department, you get 4 or 5 guys that get every weekend off. But when you're the guy that works every weekend, that gets old quick. So your turnover rate tends to be higher. If you're finance-wise, I think that there's a way to get federal prisoners. I believe we've lost that. So if we could house federal prisoners, I believe we do get paid by that. Same thing with state prisoners. Working with the quorum court, I think you need to talk to each JP individually and try to get everybody on the same page to understand the problems that face the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, thank you. Jason, same question.
In the jail, that's the sheriff's main, one of his main issues. Training is the big deal to be able to de-escalate situations in the jail. And you have to look at your supervisors, as far as, why you're not retaining people. As a sheriff, I want to be in on all decisions made throughout the department, especially the jail, because if there is a lawsuit, ultimately it's going to be the sheriff. Federal prisoners is a way, holding state prisoners, holding females for other counties is a way to get revenue. The jail has 70 beds. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but right now with the staff, 50 prisoners is about, you would be at full staff. And I think they average around 24 right now, so you would have plenty of room to house federal prisoners, state prisoners, females for other departments.
All right. Okay, question number 3. Mental health, addiction, and law enforcement's role. Law enforcement officers are often the first point of contact for individuals experiencing mental health crisis and substance abuse issues, particularly in rural communities with limited treatment resources. What role do you believe the Sheriff's Office should play in responding to mental health and addiction-related calls, and how would you work with local courts, service providers, and neighboring agencies to address these challenges more effectively? And let's go with Mark.
Well, we all know that a police officer has to be a social worker half the time, a law enforcement officer half the time. Training, again, is going to be key on how to deal with mental health. Try to find a place where these people can go to get the help they need. I do not believe the county jail is that place. As far as addiction, we do have SHEC, we have the Hope Center, we have drug court that's in Boonville. They have to go to Boonville to do all their urine tests and all that. I think if we could provide some kind of transportation for those people, because a lot of people can't do drug court because they can't go to Boonville when their number's called for a random test. So maybe we can offer something in that aspect. I think people that want help, we need to try to help, and people that don't want help, need to be run out of the county. That's just how I see it. If you don't wanna be here just because you think nothing's gonna happen to you, that's not how I would run it. I think that education is gonna be another one. I think educating the youth through the DARE program. You know, we all remember, this is your brain on drugs. Where'd all that stuff go, right? I think that would be a part, and then trying to help the people that want help.
Go ahead.
Drug court, I think is absolutely great. I'm glad to see it's getting started. I was approached by this, about a month ago. I would like to see something get started, inside the jail, people that are there, some kind of, rehab program, get started in jail. Maybe when they get out, you know, they can start a new life. Now, you know, repeat offenders, you know, they're gonna need to, probably jail time is your only option. They have to want rehab, they have to want help to get it. Mental health issues is a big deal. They do not need to be locked up in the county jail. It's really tough with those type of situations. I know Sebastian County has a place where they can get help. I mean, that's an avenue to reach out.
All right, thank you. The next question you don't have. I'm going to ask a question that I've thought about and come up with, and so you're not going to get a copy of this question. It's not a gotcha question or anything else, but it's a real world situation, and it's dealing with interagency coordination between the Sheriff's Department and it could be state police, it could be ICE, it could be the DEA. The first part of this question is, if the ICE agents come to you, Homeland Security, and says, we need your assistance in securing an area because you have an illegal that is living in rural Arkansas here in Scott County. This individual, you don't really know them, but you know they've never been a problem. They have a job and they worked. Are you going to assist ICE in capturing or taking that individual in custody? Mark, let's begin with you.
I would say you do what is allowed by the Constitution. If the ICE agents, I'm not going to help detain, but if they need help with traffic control, roadblock, to provide backup, always. As far as detaining the individual, that would be them if it's an ICE warrant, but we would assist legally by the Constitution.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
We would assist, but before we did, I want to know all the operation plans. I want to see, because I don't want it to turn into a standoff or a hostage situation if we can avoid it. But, you know, as far as assisting, yes, we will assist. But if I deem that the citizens of Scott County is going to be in danger, or something could go wrong and fire back on the department, absolutely not. We will not help.
Okay, just stay there. There's part two to this.
All the way.
Okay. The part two of this is that the DEA comes to you and they notify you and tell you that there is an individual living in Scott County that they believe could possibly have violated some federal gun regulation laws. Maybe a felony, maybe not a felony. They don't specify that. You know this individual that has lived in Scott County, never had any trouble, never had any problem with them, and they want you to assist on a search warrant of their house and the property there, and they want to do it at 5 o'clock in the morning as a no-knock search warrant. How are you going to respond to that?
Well, there again, I'm going to keep the safety of Scott County citizens in mind above everything. And if I know the individual, he hasn't caused us any issues, you know, why not let's wait till he leaves his house? If we think that he's going to be a danger, Why not we wait till he leaves his house and detain him then, and then to go back and execute the search warrant? You know, I mean, you're stepping off into something when you go with a no-knock, middle of the night search warrant that could turn dangerous real quick. And I believe there's always another way.
All right, thank you. Mark?
I agree with Jason on a lot of that, but the other thing I would say is if you know this individual, could you not call that individual and have them surrender themselves and then let them search their house? If you have that relationship with the person and you know the person that well, I would hope that I could call them and say, hey, you know, we've got a search warrant. You need to come turn yourself in and let us search your house. I don't agree with a no-knock at 5 o'clock in the morning for a peaceful person just because they want to search if they have guns. If it was a violent criminal, that'd be different.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to be moving on to the next segment, and this is the cross-question segment. There's 2 of you participating this evening, and each of you will have an opportunity to ask one cross-question of the other candidate that's running for sheriff. And the questions must relate to the responsibilities of the sheriff's office. Do we flip a coin on this one? Okay. This is all I'm allowed to have. I've got a nickel. My wife holds on to the big money. Who wants to call it?
Go ahead, Jason. Heads.
Tails. You can either, Mark gets to decide, you can either take and ask, be the first one to ask, or be the second one to ask this question.
You can ask me, Jason.
Okay.
Give me time to think.
Go ahead, Jason. This is tough.
I understand business experience as good, but what do you deem, because Scott County Sheriff or any sheriff deals with life and death situations every day, what would you say would be a good amount of experience to become the sheriff and lead the department?
Experience in just.
But yours with law enforcement experience.
Okay.
Yeah, let me add, you got a minute to answer. You have, 2 minutes to ask the questions. Hopefully I didn't get that backwards.
Well, I would think that the minimum, and that's a good question, Jason, because I've got a year, but I will say a year as a certified officer, but I also did ride-alongs. I rode with Polk County a lot. I was the first police explorer president in Polk County. Minimum, I would say you at least need to be a certified law enforcement officer at a minimum. Leadership cannot, you know, I would have to say there's an age minimum too. I wouldn't want a 22-year-old with 1 year of experience, you know, running for sheriff. If he was 40, you know, or us older, you know, he's mature in his life. He'd bring a different set, you know, being a cop at 25 and a cop at 35 is 2 different things. That's what I would say, at least a year or at least be certified.
Okay, Mark, are you ready to ask your question?
Yep.
Go ahead.
What is the one thing you would change about the sheriff's office and how?
Well, there's a lot that I would like to change about the sheriff's office. The first thing is I would like to bring trust to the sheriff's office. You know, the only way I know to where I could gain the people's trust is just be out here and do what I've said I'm going to do, and just be available, be accountable. I want to be a sheriff that the people are not intimidated by. That if I'm not doing what I said, I want everybody to feel comfortable to come to my office or wherever if you see me and say, hey, why are you not doing this? You said you would.
All right, thank you. I believe that does it for the sheriffs. And I'd like everybody to give them a big hand. This is not easy to come up here and respond, but they did a great job and had some thoughtful answers to some pretty tough questions. Well, we're not done. You're not off the hook yet, sheriffs. I didn't see, it's not on my notes, and again, I'm like a chicken. I wake up in a new world every morning. But each of you will get a 1-minute closing statement. that you can have. And since Mark won the toss last time, we'll go ahead and let Jason decide if he wants to go first or second.
Go ahead, Warren. I really don't care. Appreciate it.
Well, for those that don't know me, I'd love to get to know you. I know there's a lot of rumors that float around. You know, that the ticket quoted was one of them. That's not true. It was minimum contact. All I'm going to say is I think you have some good candidates for a lot of positions. I would keep an open mind and come out to vote and vote whoever you believe is the best choice. Thank you.
All right. Good answer.
I've devoted my life to law enforcement. I've got 31 years of experience. I always wanted to be the Scott County Sheriff. It's not something I take lightly. People's asked me, said, hey, why do you want that headache? I don't consider it a headache. I consider it a great honor if I were lucky enough to be elected sheriff. And I hope everybody comes out and votes in March, no matter who you vote for.
All right, great job. Okay, we're going to be moving on to the county judges now. And we have 3 candidates running for county judge. There'll also be 4 questions and 1 cross question. You have 2 minutes per candidate. And then there is if there's something that I think that you need to rebut and I agree with you, you have 1 minute to rebut something that another candidate may have said about what they think your policy is or clarification. So, you guys ready? Looks like it. All right. Again, it'll be the same way we did before. And let's see. Make sure we got the first question. I'll just pick. I'll pick who goes first. I don't have much power very often, but I have the power today to pick who's going to go first on this thing. But anyway, the first question. County leadership priorities and day-to-day operations is the title of this question. The county judge serves as the chief executive officer of county government, responsible for overseeing daily operations, county property, and coordination with multiple departments. As county judge, how would you set priorities for county operations, and what management approach would you use to ensure departments are working efficiently while still meeting the needs of Scott County residents? And let's begin with Judge Brian Jones.
Oh, any of these good?
Yeah, should work.
Okay, as county judge, he's right, we've got a lot of responsibilities. But the priorities from the county judge, number one, protect citizens of this county. It don't matter if it comes to roads, it's bridges, it's Little Rock getting grants, it's trying to find funds. You've got to protect the citizens of this county. I work pretty well efficiently with all departments. I'm probably one of the only county judges that does not have a stamp in my office to stamp bills. I go through every bill in the county. That don't matter what department writes it out. If it's the sheriff's department, the jail, it cannot be paid till I sign it. So I watch money pretty close. I've been in office 3 years. I've actually added about $3 million to the county funds. And the reason being is because you never know what you're going to get. It's called monopoly money. We run a county budget, just the road alone, $3.1 million. Right now, there's $800,000 in a fund. If you don't get funds, you better have a reserve. But that's how I approach the county. I watch the money, but my main goal is to protect citizens of this county.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and go with John next.
As a county judge, leadership, like Brian said, is very important. And I think along with that is the safety of the citizens. One of my priorities would be to have a Office of Emergency Management that is preparing people for whatever catastrophe might come along. We get them every spring in this county. I've lived here since '09. And to see that the county is operated like a successful business or corporation. And that takes somebody that can think about what's coming in, how you can most efficiently utilize that money, how you can serve the people, whether it's roads or bridges or whatever, make it safer for people to move about and do commerce in this county. And I agree that the judge should be able to sit down with all these other agencies, whether it's the sheriff department or the mayor, and be able to work together to move this county forward for the betterment of everybody, all the citizens that live here and pay taxes here. And so that would be probably one of my biggest goals. My desire is to see us move forward, not only in the present now, but in the thinking about the future and the future of this county. You know, with the new highway coming through and trying to bring industry in here that can create revenue for us to work off of, as far as having proactive agents in the county that could generate revenue for us.
All right, thank you. David, your turn.
Thank you. I've lived in this county, we came in '59. And I've seen it prosper, and I've seen it decline. And lately, all I see is decline. The first responsibility as a county judge, as far as I believe, is the safety of each and every resident in the county. That's number one. Number two, we need to, of course, everything costs. We've got to manage what we got. But I believe with the quorum court working with the county judge, the vision of new opportunity, new advancement, new businesses that would like to come in here to help the resident. Yes, we have a road problem. Yes, we have a bridge problem. And I believe with the right vision and the right county courthouse and the quorum court working tandem together, we can overcome those challenges. Thank you.
All right. Okay, on question number 2, and David, I should have just told you to stay up there. You're gonna get question 2 first. This one deals with infrastructure, roads, and long-term planning. Road maintenance and infrastructure are among the most visible and costly responsibilities of county government, particularly in a rural county with limited resources and aging infrastructure. How would you approach prioritizing road and infrastructure projects, planning for long-term needs, and balancing immediate repairs with future investment, especially when funding is limited? And as we know, funding is always limited.
We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to look at what we have in Scott County. We need to be proud of Scott County. We need to have the ability to look at budgets. We need to be able to work with the quorum court. And I depend on the quorum court to make a lot of input in the decisions that we need to address. Of the 26 precincts, where do we start? Every one of them's underwater. Bridges, where do we start? A lot of them need repair. What I would suggest is that we try to spread what we can across the county so that one part is not getting all of it to where another part gets left out. I would like to see our JPs scout out their district, their precinct, bring it to the court. This is what we need, this is where we need it, this is what we think it'll cost. It's going to be a magnet job. But like I said, I believe with the will of the Lord, the vision, we can take what is and turn it in to what's better. Thank you.
Okay, Brian, Same question.
Well, everybody knows Scott County roads are, you can get them in good shape and Mother Nature will strike you down. We've tried to build up our roads. If you're looking for a perfect road, you don't need to be in Scott County because it's never gonna happen. We built roads on creek rivers, they are underwater all the time, but we try to build them up and keep them maintained. As far as bridges, I've built 3 new bridges since I've been in office. I've got 2 more right now in the works, a feasibility study, and then was awarded probably one of the largest grants Scott County will get, $4 million bridge at Dewey. They're fixing to start the feasibility. I've done final paperwork on it today. I try to build a new bridge every year. They're expensive, trust me. But we have to watch the funding we get, and we maintain what we think is the most dangerous for the citizens. Yes, our roads need to be wider everywhere to get more drainage. But the county can't afford to clear fence roads and build fence. I'm sorry, but it just ain't gonna happen. Paved roads, they'd be nice if they was all paved, but you go to Logan County, Franklin County, them judges over there is worried now because they've got everything paved and they can't afford to keep them up. We have dirt, and that's what we try to keep up. Paved roads, most of ours is done by state. So they pick the state roads that they're gonna do, and that's what we go with. I'm always looking to better the citizens of this county on the roads and bridges. We do what we can do with what money we got and drive towards what's most dangerous and where the most traffic is. Thank you.
All right. John?
Yeah, concerning the infrastructure and the roads, I had the opportunity to go to Little Rock here a while back and go to the 10th floor of the RDOT building there and meet with the gentleman that's in charge of all the roads in the state of Arkansas. We have a lot of state roads going through this little town here. And I wanted to visit with him on road maintenance. Now this ain't so much the county roads. I live on a county road out in Cawthorn, have a farm out there. And you know, the structure of the roads and the bridges, that all falls into part of the safety of the people, of the citizens of Scott County. You know, being able to move around, do commerce, bus children to school, all these guys go out on these roads. And I say, I agree, they could all use some help, and money is always an issue. But I think there's 2 ways to approach a gravel road in Scott County. And for 385 years, there's been bad storms come through here, rainstorms in the spring. And so my approach would be maybe restructure that road where water could run off of it and go to the ditch. And all the ditches were designed originally to carry the water to a brook or a stream. Well, if you drive out here on our roads, now you can see a lot of that is either dammed or the culvert stopped up, and so the water sits on the road. When water sits on the road, it saturates the gravel. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And John, you might as well stand back up there again. You're going to be first on the next question. This is question number 3. And it's about budgeting, taxpayer funds, and working with quorum court. The county judge works closely with the quorum court to develop and manage the county's budget, making decisions that directly affect taxpayer, county employees, and essential services. How would you approach budget planning and fiscal responsibility, and what principles would guide your decision-making when balancing taxpayer concerns, employee needs, and county services?
Thank you. As a business owner and having to do all these, I've had a lot of experience in this area. And as far as working with the quorum court, I see it essential that you have a good relationship with the quorum court, that people are proactive, that have that position and are in touch with their people in their districts. I didn't even know who my JP was for a long time out there where I have my farm. But I agree there needs to be a relationship between the quorum court, the judge, and the citizens to where we know if there's a problem, we can get together, see what our funds are, and try to come to some kind of solution to rectifying that problem. You know, I know money is always an issue, so it takes some working together to get through some of these issues.
All right, thank you. David?
I believe that a great quorum court can be a major help in managing and developing and laying out projects that we need to do. We would have to put them in a order from each of the 9 JPs that I want and would expect them to know their district, know their precincts, know how many miles of road they got, know how many bridges they got, know which ones are in trouble, so that they can come and codify their top 2 problems, each 9 of them. That would be 18. Then we would look at where do we start and how do we develop it. And we wouldn't just stay in one district. We would go from one district to another district to another district and be able to look at those challenges and come up with solutions. Thank you.
All right. Brian, did I get you? No, sir. I didn't think so. Go ahead. Just making sure.
Scott, I got a good relationship with my quorum court. They understand the funding, everything else. Most of them was here before I took office. They do good. They watch the money just as well as I do. They appropriate what they think they need. Running a business is nothing like running a county, I promise you. I've run a business my whole life. I'm operating on money that I don't know if it's going to come or if it's going to go. So when we figure our budget, and it's not increased hardly anything in 3 years, and it's probably not for a while. But I allocate 80% of what I think is going to come in, what the state tells me. Sales tax drops, that's less money. So we run about 80% of what we think is coming in, and then we prioritize, which your infrastructure is your number 1 thing, because that's where everything works, from 911 and everything. So that's my answer.
All right, thank you. Brian, go ahead and stay up there. You're going to be first on this last question as far as the ones I'm asking. This is question number 4. Emergency management, transparency, and public communication. The county judge plays a central role in emergency management, disaster response, and coordination with state and local agencies during severe weather events, infrastructure failures, or public emergencies. How would you handle emergency preparedness and response, and how do you believe the county judge should communicate with the public and local media during emergencies to maintain trust and transparency?
Well, as far as emergency management, I've got one that we hired here, OEM. She does an outstanding job. She's took 174 courses since she's been in office. She has more training than our bosses from Little Rock. She does a good job of making sure the citizens are aware on the phones. Dispatch knows what roads we're closing, what we're doing. Local media, just like this last ice storm we had, I declared a disaster. I put 5 graders on state highways. If not, you're probably still gonna have state highways iced over because they don't have graders in this state county anymore. So working together with the state, the city, everything else is major when it's an emergency. But we try to do what we can to notify who we need to, what we think, and during emergency. Every emergency is different. You may have a tornado this time, you may have a flood next time. It's just, you have to base what the criteria you think is with what we've got to handle.
All right, thank you. David?
Like I said before, the first duty of a county judge is protection for its residents. We need to do a lot more in emergency management. We need to do a lot more training in emergency management. We need a lot information that we can get. We have one of the largest counties in the state of Arkansas. It is rural. We have like 86% is natural forest. We need spotters. We need the ability to have a plan already in place on whatever emergency we got. It's like 41 days, tornado season is gonna be up here on us, and way out here in our county coming this way. And a lot of times, if we don't have spotters, if we don't have information, the radar cannot pick it up. They can pick up the upper part. They cannot pick up the bottom part. If you got a wall and you know what a wall is and what it will have, we need people that want to help people. Thank you.
And John, your turn.
Yeah, the Office of Emergency Management, like I said, is a high priority for me because it has to do with the safety of the citizens. And to me, that's first. We need, like David said, there's a lot to be desired in that area in this county right now, talking to people. Should a disaster come, are we prepared for it? Do the citizens know what to do? Are we training or giving classes? And you know, sometimes you get in a situation where there's no communications whatsoever on our internets or our phones, and that is the reason people have a license to operate a ham radio, so they can still get outside and let people know what we need in our area. So I'm very much going to focus on that if I get elected, and make sure that we have people aware of where to go, what to happen if we had a disaster, a chemical spill. We got a lot of chemicals in this town too, with Tyson here and ammonia and such. So yeah, I would make it very high priority to be able to have people teach classes for those that want to have that opportunity to learn that.
All right, thank you. Again, that's the end of the questions that come from me. We're getting ready to go into the cross question segment. Again, one candidate will be selected at random to ask a question of one of the opposing candidates. The question must relate to the responsibility of the county judge. The asking candidate will have 1 minute to ask your question. The responding candidate will have 2 minutes. There's no rebuttals or follow-ups questions that will be permitted. And I've got the right to redirect or whatever that I want to do. Again, I'm feeling the power up here right now. So
we have all three candidates' names in here.
you want to take this right quick? Go ahead, next one.
All right, so we have all three of the candidates' names in here. Marcus is going to pick one, and whoever is picked will be the one selected to ask the cross question of whichever candidate they choose.
Pick John. All right. John, you get to ask the cross question of whichever candidate you decide to pick.
Thank you, sir. This question is for Brian Jones.
Wait, that's it, right?
Yes. As far as utilizing the funds, the resources, and the asset that the county has, such as the jail and its inmates, would it be possible to use inmates as far as out along 71 to pick up trash and maybe mow that area?
Yes, it's possible, but that's up to your local sheriff, because if you take inmates out of the jail, they have to be escorted, and somebody has to stay with them 24/7. So that's be up to the jail, the sheriff, whoever. It should be the sheriff, because they control everything. But yes, it's possible. There's other counties do it and everything else. But the personnel we've got at the sheriff's office right now, they say they don't have the manpower.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, each county judge candidate will have an opportunity for their 1 minute closing. David, let's start with you.
place right now with the United States and our state is at. We have an opportunity. We can do better. I believe there's personnel in this election that can do much better. And I think there's people out in the community that want to see better. I thank you for this time, and God bless.
Thank you, David. John?
Thank you. If I would be fortunate to have your vote and get elected as Scott County Judge, I'd be humbled to take that position and to serve you, the citizens of Scott County, the best of my ability. A lot of you own property in this county, you pay taxes, and I think we're at a place, in my mind anyway, where I feel we could do better than we're doing. And I think with the citizens pulling together with the county judge, the sheriff departments, working together even in the city of Waldron, I have a vision for this place. And it's a little bit beyond of where I'm living today. I'd like to see a county where, with all the, especially 71 highway coming through. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you guys. That concludes our county judges. Give them a big applause. And again, these guys, or did I get Brian? I'm sorry, my fault. Brian, I keep trying to cut you out. I don't know, just a habit, I guess, on this thing. Go ahead, Brian, you got a minute.
I'm seeking re-election. I've been doing this for 3 years. I'm going on my 4th term. I told y'all in 22 that I promised you 2 things and 2 things only. I'd work hard for you and I'd watch your money and spend it what I thought was best for the communities, and that's what I've done, I think. I have helped the veterans a lot at the Memorial Hall. We're getting it in good shape. We're fixing to redo the kitchen, putting the flooring in and everything else through grants. I have been to Little Rock. I have hunted grants. I've hunted money. I sit on the RAC committee now, and I've got a lot of money from them, $800,000 this year just to do roads through the Forest Service, which we are 85% on the National Forest, and there ain't much I can do with it. I appreciate your vote, March 3rd, and then if I win that one, I'll see y'all in November. Thank y'all for coming out, and God bless you.
Again, I'll say it again since I jumped the gun here, but I certainly appreciate the county judges and the sheriffs as well. The county judges coming. It's got to be one of the hardest jobs in the state. It really is. It is incredibly difficult to be a county judge anywhere in this state. And it's definitely even more difficult, I think, here in Scott County when you consider about 86% of the land that makes up Scott County is National Forest Service, and that's not always a blessing on this thing. So I appreciate the hard work that all these candidates have been put into it and what they're trying to do. I appreciate the hard work of the sheriffs as well. We're going to be moving on now to the state reps, and I'm missing something.
They're just wondering if they could be dismissed.
What's that?
They're wondering if they could be dismissed.
You guys want to be dismissed? That really hurts my feelings on this thing. Now you see, again, I spent 22 years in the Marine Corps. I could handle 2 pretty well, but when we got up to the number 3, I kept forgetting somebody, and that's probably one of the reason why I decided not to run for another term on this thing. It's just more proof there. But no, you guys that have been up here, again, let's give them a round of applause, and thank you very much. David, good job. Thank you. You guys take care. It's hot up there, isn't it? Yeah. Now, for our remaining state representative candidates, any of you guys need a bottle of water or something before we get going? Got the dry mouth? You all right? Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get going here. All right, the guys that we have up here right now, they're running to replace me, and nobody's happier to see them run than me on this. It's been it's really been an honor serving you, but 12 years, that's enough. It's time to let somebody else come in with new ideas and new things. Every one of these guys is qualified. Every one of these guys will go down there and do a good job. Every one of these guys are capable of going down there and doing a better job than I did. And so, again, that's what you need, and that's why you need to listen to them very carefully so you can make the best decision possible with the information you have. Before we move into the questions, though, I want to tell one story, and this is a true story, about the dangers of running for state representative. It didn't happen to me, but it happened to a guy named Johnny Rye over in the eastern part of the state. Good guy, older guy, got a messed up hip, does a lot of limping. I don't think he can say my full name. All I ever hear is, "Hey, Mar." "Hey, Mar." "Johnny, it's Marcus." "Okay, Mar." But again, good guy. He went to a duck festival. And Facebook, that's a big deal now, especially if you get outside of just a small area. You've got to use every tool you have to try to reach candidates. And again, true story. I hope nobody's offended. But he went to a duck festival over there somewhere in his district. Duck hunting's a big deal over there. And so when he posted it on Facebook, he spelled duck with an F. And he talked about, "I saw so-and-so, hadn't seen you there in years. Really good to see you at the festival. And there's my good old friend there. I was surprised to see you at the festival." And it took him a couple of days to get that thing off. And I've got a copy of it, and I think everybody else has a copy of it that we just keep to remind us. Don't post anything that you don't proofread at least a couple of times on this thing. All right, for the candidates for State Representative District 52, we've got 4 candidates up here. I'll let you introduce yourself right quick, starting on that end. Go ahead, Brent.
My name's Brent Montgomery.
Go ahead.
I'm Crystal Malloy.
I'm Christian Thompson. I'm Mike Jones.
And again, thank you very much for that. You're each going to get 6 questions and 1 cross question, kind of similar to what we did a little while ago. You're going to have 2 minutes per candidate, and then there's also the optional 1-minute rebuttal. That can happen if one of you start feeling a sharp object in your back or something. We'll get to the rebuttal portion of it on this. Again, appreciate you guys making the trip over here, this part of the district. You're going to find out this is an important part of the district, and let me tell you what, and they'll tell you, it is a long, hard road running for state representative in a district as large as District 52. There's more county roads that you've never heard of or seen before in your life. When I was running beforehand, there was a couple of roads I went down, and when I got down there a ways and looked around, I thought, well, I just don't need that vote that much, and turned around and went on back home, went a different direction, because I wasn't real sure what I was getting ready to get into. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started here with our first question. And I'll warn you that there's going to be a question here that's not exactly, just like I did with the sheriff, it's not going to be exactly as you see printed, but it'll be close. And here's something just for the audience. We all love black and white answers. Yes, no. This is the reason. That is the reason. When you go down there as a state representative, that is usually the last situation you'll find yourself in, is a good black and white decision that you can say yes or you can say no. There's some things along the party line that's very easy. There's some things along taxes and stuff like that are very easy. But at least I'd say 85% of the questions, there is no right answer and there is no wrong answer, because everybody likes to make it gray. That way you get in there, you got everything nice and gray. If I vote wrong on this, well, you know what? I can do a little dance and a shuffle and I'll be okay. But that's everybody you listen to down there, they've got their take on it, and they're looking for your vote. And the only thing you can do is take care of the folks that are out here in the district as well as you can. That's got to be the priority. So question number 1, legislative independence and constituent representation. You may have heard this one in the news. Recently, the University of Arkansas rescinded an offer to a law professor following public controversy over her views on gender and athletics, prompting involvement from members of the General Assembly. How would you respond to a constituent who believes the legislature has no role in influencing university hiring decisions, and how do you balance legislative oversight with institutional independence? We'll start on the far end. Brent, go ahead.
Whoops, can y'all hear me? All right, so I would say that in the example that was used in this question with the University of Arkansas, I think absolutely the state did the right thing by firing that individual, because we have people that are influencing our kids. That's at an age when you're in college, you're trying to figure out the rest of your life, you're trying to figure out your steps moving forward, what career path you're going to go into, where you're going to start a new life and all that. You're at an age where you're really easily influenced. We need to make sure the people that are speaking into our kids need to be the right people. And it is a state institution, so I believe when the state needs to step in and do the right thing, that's what they need to do. In this instance, this example, absolutely, I think the state made the right decision and they did the right thing. And it was a hard decision, but sometimes you have to make hard decisions for the greater good, and I think that's exactly what they did.
All right. Crystal.
I completely agree with Brent and how he answered that. And I would say you're representing your constituents, and you're also going to Little Rock to be a voice for the people in your districts. And so use that voice, stand up, and to be able to speak when you see that something that is wrong. You need to speak up and you need to say it. They didn't go in there and require that they fire her, but they used their voices, and they used the checks and balances which we have in our government, in our state, to be able to make that voice heard. So I completely agree.
All right, Kristen?
I'm going to echo what they said also. At the end of the day, when there's state tax dollars being used, there needs to be oversight. And exactly what Brent said, the people who, I work at a university every single day, and I know the impact that those people and those professors and those deans have on every single one of those students. And so when you have somebody who wants to push an agenda that is not an Arkansas agenda and doesn't go with our values, we need to make sure that we cut that off, because everybody always wants to say, well, there's one, if we get one person in here, everybody always wants to say that it's only going to be one person, and then it turns to two, and then it turns to three. At the end of the day, the people who are going to be influencing our future leaders, we need to make sure that they aren't pushing that on our kids. And what we saw was somebody who had the potential to do that, and somebody who had shown that in the past. And we need to make sure that we cut that off at the head of the snake, because we're not going to let somebody come into Arkansas and tell us how we're going to live. I promise you that. Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Marcus. That's a very good question. I would like to thank Waldron News and all the people that showed up out here today. That means you care about what's going on in your community, in your district. As far as I believe that answering this question is a very important question. This country's built in God we trust, and that's where I'm going to stake my base. And when it comes out here to this globe ideology of not knowing whether you're a man or a woman, I think the Bible tells it straight out. Some people may not agree with that, but that's what I believe. I'm going to carry those values down to Little Rock, and I'm going to carry those values with me in that house, and I'm going to vote my conscience. I'm going to vote what I think the good Lord wants us to do in those situations, and I agree 100% with the legislature and how they did it, how it was handled, and I will do it again. Thank you.
All right. We're going to start with Crystal next. And this is question number 2. It's economic development and use of public incentives and public tax funds. Again, your money. A lobbyist asked you to support legislation that would use taxpayer-funded incentives such as tax breaks to attract or expand a business in Arkansas. The project would create approximately 40 new jobs. Let me expand it. Tax breaks can be one of the incentives, infrastructure, all those type of things, public money could be used for that. There is an account that's been set aside by the General Assembly called the Quick Action Closing Account, something like that, and it's several $1 million in there, a big bundle of money that's supposed to be used for this. But that is still taxpayer money. So just framing this question a little bit for you. What factors would you consider when deciding whether public incentives are justified, and how do you evaluate whether the benefit to taxpayer outweigh the cost? Again, this is approximately 40 new jobs not in your district.
Okay, I had this question this week from a lobbyist in Little Rock, and it is a hot button topic, and I'm going to talk really fast because I have a lot to say on this issue. At my core, I am a free market capitalist, and so I use that in my rubric when I make decisions. I'm also a small business owner, and so I'll tell you what I told the group in Little Rock. I said, here's my issue. Say you have a restaurant, an amazing Italian restaurant that has been in business for 30 years in your community, and they pay taxes and they give to team sports, and they're great community partners. And then a group comes along and decides we want to incentivize more jobs. Let's go get Olive Garden to come, and we'll abate their taxes for 10 years or give them some infrastructure and really attract them. Here's my question. Are you going to make the same deal for the business that's been here for 30 years? I'm a small business owner, and if you use whatever kind of funds, whoever is deciding to bring in my competition, I'm going to have a problem with that, because that's my blood, sweat, and tears that I've put into this business, and who's making these decisions. And I know that at the end of the day, you can say, well, it's 40 new jobs, but if there's money to be made, those businesses will come. If there is a profit to be had, they will come. And my other response to that is, why don't we make Arkansas the most radically business-friendly state in the union? Why don't we give lower taxes to everybody? Why don't we offer every business radical incentives to come to Arkansas and to say, let's do this, you want to come here, and we're offering it to everybody.
Thank you. Kristen?
You know, the factors kind of echo a little bit what Crystal said also. The factors, we have to outweigh what's going to come from it at the end of the day. 40 new jobs is 40 new jobs, and we can't not look at that. Because at the end of the day, what do we need in our area right now? We need more jobs. And at the end of the day, I promise you this, I know the restaurant she's talking about. Those people have their customers, because I'm one of them. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, we have to continue to look for opportunities, because if we want our kids to be able to stay here and grow up here and raise their families here, we have to have new jobs. And I'm sorry, we have land. Now look, we need people to come in, so those tax breaks are going to be an incentive for them to come in. But at the end of the day, I do not believe in being desperate, because when you do things when you're desperate, it ends up coming back and biting you. I think that we need to make sure that we look through and find those businesses that the return on investment that we're going to get is going to be something that's worth it.
All right, thank you.
Just to clarify, mine was a hypothetical.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
not referring to a specific tax abatement situation.
Say that right quick.
Okay. That was a hypothetical. I'm not referring to any specific tax abatement situation.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see, Mike, your turn.
Another great question. I, for one, am way out there pushing economic growth to where it would be throughout the state, our district, our counties. We have to have economic growth because we need jobs for our kids. And we all know that housing is tough and different things are tough, but they need good jobs, good paying jobs with benefits. So yes, as far as economic growth, I 100% say we have to have economic growth, and that fund is out there to fund that. Now, I'm not a proponent of taking state money and saying, hey, just come and we'll give you the world. I'm not a proponent of that. I think each individual thing has to be looked at closely and to see what it benefits. If it doesn't benefit my district, does it benefit the state as a whole? Could it trickle down to benefit my district? I think there's a lot of different things you have to look at to take in the situation and make those decisions. We have a lot of room for growth in Yale, Scott, and Southern Sebastian County, and I want to see that happen. But sending tons of tax dollars out just to hope that somebody comes and builds a business and stays, I'm against. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And again, yeah, go ahead, Brent.
Again, the question was, this is not in our district, correct?
Not in our
It's
district.
40 jobs outside our district. Well, at the end of the day, our job is to represent our district and our constituents. So, like Mike said, if a trickle-down effect eventually helps your district, then that's something you should get involved in. I can actually speak about my business. I have 30 employees that work for me. It is not in this district. It's about 2 miles outside of the district. I live in the district, but my business is in Plainview. And I can say, you put on here that how would you weigh the options? You got to do a cost analysis on that, okay? Is the juice worth the squeeze, so to speak? So for every dollar my business creates in Plainview, Arkansas, it creates $10 in the town of Plainview through circulation before it leaves there. That's through my employees going to the store. That's through tax revenue coming to Plainview. That's through sales tax to our fire department. Whatever the calculation is, for every dollar my employee makes, the city of Plainview gets basically $10 out of that before it leaves there. So that's big. You got 40 jobs. That's going to really help that area. But at the end of the day, we're worried about our constituents in our district. What's it going to do for our district? But I think anytime you can create 40 jobs, that's a win. Okay, economic development is the rising tide that rises all ships. When you start creating jobs, you start creating tax opportunities, better roads, better bridges, housing development, housing market, everything comes up when you start creating jobs. So we've created jobs. We've created $30. We started a business with $9 14 years ago. First 2 years it was me and whoever I could pick up from the temp office, and we built it up to a multi-million-dollar business that now has 32 employees. So we know how to create jobs. I think it's very important, especially for rural communities. But like you said, I wouldn't want somebody moving in across the street from me doing the same thing that I'm doing either. We got to pick and choose. You can't do a blanket law for this. It has to be a case-by-case basis, and that's the way I would approach it, is doing a cost analysis to see if it's worth doing.
All right, thank you. On this, go ahead, folks. Let me just say, the answers that you heard up here, I think, are some of the most insightful answers that I've ever heard about this particular issue. It is a complicated issue. It is a difficult issue. The first thing I always ask on something like that is, are those jobs going to be in my district? If they're in my district, well, then there's, probably going to be supportive unless there's something there that it's going to conflict with, just like Crystal pointed out. But it is a hard thing because you're using taxpayer money, and there's a word for it, 2 words actually, that a lot of people use, and that's corporate welfare. But we are competing with a lot of states that have a lot of advantages that we don't have. And so that's why this fund was set up. And that's why it needs to be used thoughtfully. The steel mills over in northeast Arkansas, that the jobs average somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 is the average salary of everybody that works over there, was started by this type of program. You have then expansions down with the military production down in Camden and those areas. Again, these type of incentives. So it goes back to, there is no real good black and white. Every one of them is different. There's no perfect answer for any of them. It's just a lot, and these guys showed so much insight about what it is that you have to consider in order to make the best possible decision for your district. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. Again, question 3, I believe this is going to be Christian's turn here. And again, this one is pressure, alliances, and statewide decisions. We're all familiar with this a little bit. The governor proposes building a new prison in another legislative district. Residents and representatives of that district strongly oppose the location. Your district would not be directly impacted, but your constituents' sympathies are with those that are affected. At the same time, you need the governor's support on unrelated legislation that's going to benefit your district. How would you approach the decision to vote with the governor or against the governor, and what principles would guide that vote?
When it comes to this question, the first questions that I would start asking is, what was the path of least resistance? Was there other counties that wanted this? Was there a those people that prison. Now, when people feel like something's being shoved down their throats, they don't like that. They don't like being told. And so I'm somebody that at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we hold I want to make sure that the voters are heard, and that's everywhere. Because when you have something that's going to cost a lot more money than when it was originally going to be, that's when I have an issue with it. And do I think that there was a path of least resistance in this case? Yes. And sometimes it's more important to do the right thing and then go back and figure out another way, because there's always another way. Thank you.
Mike?
Somehow I knew this question would come up. It's been a pretty hot and popular topic. I ran a couple years ago against Marcus. It was very educational. Marcus is a great state representative, and he's taught me a lot of things, gave me a lot of good advice. One thing that I was told by a legislator is, when you go down to Little Rock, your job is not to vote. It is your job, but that's not your main job. Your main job is to represent your constituents and take care of the problems that they have. And I'm going to carry that with me to Little Rock. Now, we go back to the basis of this prison, $1 billion. $1 billion. That's a lot of zeros. We're struggling to take care of the Learns Act, to pay our teachers, and keep that deal going. I don't know where that's going to land. I don't think, by the time we're elected, I think that thing will have probably came and gone. But I'm for prisons and police and safety of the citizens, but we have to do it responsibly, and you can't put it on a rock and spend all this money when it's not wanted in that area, when there's 2 or 3 other counties that would love to have the prison. Now the governor, yeah, you've got to play ball with the governor, but you guys aren't going to elect me to go down there and play politics. We're going to take care of the constituents of our district, but I'm not going to go down there and play politics with the governor. I'm going to have to work with different people in the legislature, the governor being one of them, but I'm going to stand on my convictions and what my constituents want in my district.
All right, thank you. Brent?
So I could get up here and talk about the prison forever. We've been asked this question a bunch, and I don't agree with the prison being put in Franklin County where they wanted to put it. I do think there's other counties that want it. Scott County's got a great place for it just up the road up here where there's a watershed lake and a bunch of land for sale. You talk about a lot of revenue coming to Scott County. That being said, the question really was, how are you going to keep the governor's support through this if you disagree with it? I think that you do have to have the governor's support, because there's going to be other legislation that comes down the road that if you make the governor mad right off the bat, and you got something coming down the road that you really need her help on, and you need to get her behind you, then you don't need to be on her bad side. That's just how it works, okay? But you can disagree with somebody and have a good conversation with them and agree to disagree with something and go about it the right way. You got to do it respectful. I deal with it with employees all the time. We have disagreements. I deal with the contractors and inspectors. You just got to agree. You got to talk it out. When the conversation quits, that's when stuff happens. You got to be able to talk out disagreements. You got to be able to go to Sarah and say, here's why I disagree with this. Hear her perspective. When you hear both perspectives on things, most of the time there's some common ground to be found. So it starts with having a healthy conversation. And at the end of the day, when you leave that conversation, you can say, we're just going to agree to disagree. Okay, but that doesn't mean she's going to be against you going forward with every bill that you want passed for your constituents. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what's best for your constituents. And that starts by having a healthy conversation on the front end, whether you agree or disagree with something. Communication is key in something like this.
All right, Crystal?
When I first looked into running, I had a really great conversation with a representative who told me, he said, no enemies. And I thought, that's a wonderful policy, and I'm going to adopt it. And so from day one, I just told myself, I will not have enemies in this. Now, people might be an enemy with me, but I will not be an enemy with them. And when I look across the nation, when I look across our state, I think that part of the problem is that we've made everything about people instead of policy. And so we start battling into these, into who it is, and we start attacking people's character or their reputation instead of looking at the actual issue and trying to solve the problem. One of the ways that I think you can really set yourself up for success is being very open and clear about your policies and your beliefs from the beginning, so that when you have a disagreement, it's not, I disagree with you, it's like, oh, my policies don't line up with that. My principles don't line up with that. So for me, if I was to look at this and look at my policies and my principles, and I did have a conversation with the governor's office, I would say, here's the deal. I'm gonna choose local control every time. That's one of my guiding principles, and that's one of my policies that if I'm given the choice, I want local control. And so I'm gonna support a district to make their decision. If they don't want it, I'm gonna support them in their local control making that decision. And so then it takes it away from a conversation about this specific thing or this person, but rather talking about a rubric of how you make decisions and your integrity as a person. And it's not an attack against them. It's just sharing, these are my guiding principles, and so that district doesn't want it, so I'm gonna have to align with them in that. It's overwhelming. You know, I've been on the ground, I've heard people talk, and so that would be the way that I approach that, and just really trying to focus on seeing people as people and policies as separate.
All right, thank you. Mike, you're gonna be, let's see, yeah, you're gonna be first on this one.
I'll be first.
Yeah. And again, it's a question about transparency, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and government accountability. And a bill is introduced that would alter Arkansas Freedom of Information Act, extending response times for record requests. Local governments support the change due to staffing and cost burdens, while media, organizations, and attorneys oppose it. The reason why local government supports it is because you get individuals out there that have an axe to grind, and they just send questions after questions, request after request after request, and you end up having to hire new staff. The reason why attorneys do not support it is because they make money. The reason why the media wouldn't support it is because they're trying to keep you informed. They're trying to be sure that if there's something nefarious going on, you know about it. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. But anyway, the question is, how would you evaluate this proposal, and how do you balance government efficiency with the public's right to transparency? And again, a bill has been introduced.
I know it was last year, I think it was, there was a lot of
Oh, yeah.
things going on about FOI. You know, I believe in transparency, whether it be business, government, or whatever. If you don't know what's going on, the constituents don't know, they don't support you, they don't support whether it may be a prison or it may be a business coming into the state. I think transparency is a very big thing. Now, there are some things that I've seen when legislators talked about safety of office, safety of this, safety of that. There are some sections where the FOIA has come up, and there was a lot of argument and talk about it. I think that the number one priority has to be transparency for our government. If we don't have that, then you guys don't trust me, trust what decisions I'm making or what I'm doing for you in Little Rock, or be the governor, the attorney general, whatever. That's a very hard question to walk across. The whole thing, and I just stand on this, is transparency of the government. You know, we all, at some point, you know, don't want the government in our business, don't want this, but we want to know what's going on with the government. I think we deserve that. Again, a very hard question, but I'm not going to say that we can't move through those bills and changes without letting the people know what's going on. I think they deserve to know what's going on. And it's just a hard point. You have to look at now, evaluate the whole bill as it is, as it stands. But government transparency is one of the most important things we have, whether it be Arkansas or the United States.
Okay, Brent.
I'm with Mike. I think the government transparency is everything. It starts by voting somebody in there that is transparent, right? Transparency, you need to know where every dime goes that you know, of your tax dollars. So when I got on the quorum court in Yale County, that was one thing. There were 7 new members got on at the same time out of 11, so we flipped the court. Well, our first meeting, we said we want to be the most transparent quorum court Yale County's ever had. And luckily, we had a judge that got behind us on that. So every month, he puts out a Facebook post of every dime spent by the county, what road it was spent on, what load of gravel it was spent on. It's as transparent. It's probably as transparent as anything you'll ever find in government. But we wanted to be a transparent forum court, so that's what we did. But even with us doing that, there was somebody out of Russellville that's not even in Yale County. They had somebody they were wanting to run against the judge, so they put out a request for FOI, Freedom of Information, which is what we're talking about here. Our judge in our county spent 9 days working late, printing off stacks of paperwork that I am not kidding you was 12 foot tall, all the wasted tax revenue. They called the guy to come get it, he didn't even come pick it up. It was just a scheme from the beginning, because that's all it takes right now is a phone call. Hey, I want all this information, and you have to do it. I'm not against transparency. We need transparency, but I think it should be such a streamlined system. There should be a process you got to go through that say, hey, I want this information, but you should have to fill out a sheet that says, this is why I want this information. This is what I suspect's going on. This is why I'm requesting this information. Otherwise, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. This guy didn't even come pick up this, and we probably spent 60 hours getting this paperwork ready for him. So there needs to be some policies in place to fill out a form. This is why I want it, and then you should be able to have access to it if granted by a judge to do so. But that will save taxpayer dollars, but it all starts with getting people in there that's going to be transparent in the first place.
All right. Crystal?
I'm on city council in Dardanelle, and this is an issue that I've seen on a city level and go to meetings at the municipal league. One of the other side of this is, like what Brent was saying, is you can have a small town, a small city with a clerk who is completely overloaded getting FOIA requests for somebody in their mom's basement to put videos on YouTube. Like, it's out of control, and there's things that we couldn't foresee with social media and everything that has grown in this world. And so how do we balance that? How do we have transparency, but then also protect our city employees from burnout, from not being able to produce it, I was in a meeting where there were representatives from a larger city that were almost in tears. They're like, we can't handle the request. We need a staff person just to handle FOIA requests. And so I do think that this is one of those issues that is a little gray, and we need to get together and we need to figure out solutions. Maybe there needs to be a special rule if you're a part of the media, and maybe it's recognized, and we're checking too to see, are you someone who is, who lives in that district? Do you live in that city? You should get top priority then for that information. Are you someone that's out of state that's not gonna come pick it up? We have to figure out ways to find the solution to that, because I agree, I'm a very open, transparent person. I tell everyone, like, I'm an open book. You know, ask me anything, I'll talk about anything with you. And I'm on city council, I love to share information. And so I think that we can be transparent, but we need to figure out the best ways to go about doing this so that we don't bankrupt our municipalities and our counties.
All right, thank you. Kristen?
So, once again, I work at a university. We get FOI'd a lot. I talk to our lawyer about that a bunch. How would I evaluate this proposal? First off, when it comes to extending the time, you know, I understand that, but I think there's a better way to do this, and I think that it's going to be us going to electronic and us being able to send the records that way. Because at the end of the day, it's people continuing to print all of this paper off, and that's what's taking all the time. Well, if we already have electronic papers and we have a good filing system when it comes to a computer, then we can get that out faster. And that may be more work on the front end, but when it comes to being able to have it in the background and being able to go and find it a lot faster, that's the way that I would see us being able to go. But at the end of the day, we have to continue to be transparent, because we are one of the most transparent states in the union. And we need to continue that, because when we start trying to put legislation and trying to make it harder for people to get a hold of this information, guys, that's something that we need to be worried about. Thank you.
All right. This, as you saw, this is one of those areas where it's not black and white, it's gray, and in the past, we have wrestled with this almost the whole 12 years I've been down there. And like Mike said, the last time here, I think 2 years ago, it might have been 4 years ago, it was the center focus. And part of it, and I voted for part of it. The part I voted for was the information request about the governors when their children were being dropped off to school and when their children were being picked up and where their children was. I said, we don't have to give whoever that kind of information. And believe it or not, I had people arguing with me saying, well, she shouldn't have run for governor if she didn't want people to know where her children was. I just find that indefensible, personally. But on the other hand, how can you stop the abuse? It is a lot of abuse. People will file these things just for harassment purposes, over and over again. And you have some lawyers, and they're not particularly my favorite group of people, but you have some lawyers, they just throw stuff up against the wall hoping something will stick. And so you look at that and you go, this is an abuse. But then when it comes down to crunch time, how do you address the abuse and not stop your media from having access and the ability to find out and reveal corruption? I don't know if you remember, up there, I believe it was in Harrison, with all the abuse that was going on with the football teams and stuff, and the coaches not paying any attention to it, or in some cases, just saying, yeah, that's okay. That would have never come to light if it hadn't been for Freedom of Information Act, because again, the school board, superintendents, they were aware of this abuse. They just chose not to do anything about it. And it was the media that went in there and lawyers that went in there and found it. So there's the problem. You don't want to be abused, but you sure don't want to shut it down. And it's a difficult little line to walk. Got to be like a little ballerina with your toes and stay on this thing, because again, constituents, they want to know, and they deserve to know. But it shouldn't be abused. All right, we're going to go back up to the top of the order here with Brent, and we're going to talk about citizen-led initiatives and constitutional rights. And I'm going to frame this question. Again, this is the one that's going to be a little different than what you have written down, but I'm going to give you some background first of all, because this is when people get really, really excited over this, that we're taking away rights and stuff like that. And beginning with the background on this, there was when I first got down there, basically, you really didn't have to get outside of Pulaski County and maybe up in northwest Arkansas or someplace like that and collect the votes that you wanted. You could get all the votes, all the signatures that you needed. And there was no really check or anything on those signatures. And so we made a change and said, you've got to get a sampling of the state. And I think for a constitutional amendment, it's about 90,000. For referendum, I believe it's 70-something thousand. Then the other one is like 50,000 votes. And we're one of 24 states that allows this direct action on our Constitution and everything. And it's an important thing. But the other problem we had was that all the direct action, none of it was coming from in-state people. It was all out-of-state money that come in here. Your marijuana, medical marijuana, I don't care how you feel about it. Me personally, if you're really sick and in bad shape, I don't care. Take it. Help yourself. We're getting great tax revenue off of it. So that helps us do a few things here and there. It is a booming business, I'll tell you that much about medical marijuana. Your casinos. This is one I do have heartburn with. Right over here in Russellville, they didn't want that thing. Most of the people over there, there's a lot of people over there that do. But it was going to be forced on them whether they wanted it or not, through a ballot initiative written by people from out of state, using, I won't say his name, but using this law firm in Little Rock that's made millions of dollars off of this. And all that money coming from out of state, you take and pull up the finances and you'll find that probably 80% of the money is from out of state, and it's not even 20% that comes from in-state. And so those were the issues and the problems with these things, and why we decided to try to address it. And they're going to continue to try to address it. I think they're going to try to roll things back now the other way again on this. But with the casinos, the other thing is that you allow them to write into your Constitution a tax break. I think it's like the first $30 million that a casino makes is tax exempt. They don't have to pay any taxes on it. That's in our state constitution. It shouldn't be in our state constitution. But that's how it's abused, and that's why it's been addressed, and that's why I know a lot of people go, you're killing our rights, you're taking our rights away. We're just trying to make the process. Your state constitution ought to be a little difficult to manipulate. And so you're trying to make it where it's more difficult to manipulate by people who probably don't have your best interest in mind in a lot of cases. Maybe so. The Supreme Court, well, again, the Supreme Court has ruled, because one of the rules that was changed, and you guys may or may not know this, is that with 2/3, if you have an initiative that passes, the people vote for it and it passes, that legislatively you can change or you can amend it. I'll put it that way. You can amend it with 2/3 vote of the legislative body. That's like 66 people. That's not that easy. And for your information, you can't raise taxes or anything like that unless you have 3/4. 75, you got to have 75 people vote for any kind of tax increase or anything like that. So that's hard to do, and I'm glad it's hard to do. But the problem goes back to maintaining freedom and having a buffer against abuse on this and how it can be used. And so you've got advocacy groups that are looking to overturn and reverse everything that's been done. And you'll have to take a look, and you're going to have to make the decision, did the state go too far? Or do they still know to go further? And so here's the question. In recent years, courts have struck down several Arkansas laws that restricted citizen-led ballots, initiatives, and voters have repeatedly rejected similar legislative efforts. They don't like it. Your voters generally don't like this. And as a member of the General Assembly, will you commit to defending Arkansas's constitutional rights to self-governance? And how should the legislature approach citizen-led initiatives going forward? Let me kind of change that question just a little bit. Now, listen to this particular question. What I'm going to ask you is, as a member of the General Assembly, will you vote to maintain the existing regulations or support advocacy groups proposing legislation to repeal these new guidelines? You got that? All right, Brent, you're up.
Okay, just for a direct answer, I would support repealing our current guidelines, because we live in the Bible Belt, right? And we're a deep red state. So then you look at a ballot when you go to vote, and you're like, man, how did this stuff even get on the ballot? We're voting on abortions. We're voting on medical marijuana, which to me, I don't know how you feel about it. That's just a gateway to recreational marijuana, in my opinion. Casinos, all this stuff that you wouldn't think would be on our ballots. How did this ever get on our ballot? It's because of out-of-state interest groups that were able to get these petitions signed to get it on our ballot. So I would like to see that done differently. Now, at the same time, you want your constituents' voice to be heard, right? So that's why this is part of the Constitution as it is. If your constituents get enough signatures, they can get something on the ballot, and I'm all for that. But because of what the out-of-state interest groups have done, they've kind of ruined it for all of us, if you want to know the truth. But where it really starts is if you want your voice to be heard and something to be put on the ballot, then elect a representative in there that's going to listen to his constituents and then put something on the ballot through your representative. That's the way it needs to be done. Now, that's not to say your voice shouldn't be heard. I just think the path needs to be going through your representative. I still think we need to find a path for constituents to be able to do this, but we have to reform. I think the question was, would you support reform on this? I would support reform on this in a way that somehow we can cut out-of-state interest groups out of being able to get petitions signed for this, or pay people to sign petitions to get on the ballot. Because there's stuff that's on our ballot here in Arkansas that should have never made it to the ballot, and this is the only reason it ever has. So it starts by electing good representatives that are going to listen to their constituents. and put on the ballot what your constituents want, what's best for their districts. But yes, I would support reform on this legislation.
Crystal, your turn.
I agree with what Brent just said. I'm homeschooling my youngest right now, and we're doing American history. And one of the things that I talk about with people, it's quick for people to say, we're a democracy, and they love to say majority rules, and I'm like, well, we're a constitutional republic. And so we talk about the fact that we elect representatives, we have 3 branches of government, and so we need to protect those and to be careful that we're not creating other things outside of our Constitution. So first question we ask is it constitutional? And I think that that's extremely important, and we have to guard that and safeguard it. And it is the Arkansas state constitution, and so it should be citizens of Arkansas that lead it and support it, and we should find ways to protect from outside interests coming in and wreaking havoc on our people, our laws, and our Constitution.
All right, thank you. Kristen?
I also agree with reform to this, because at the end of the day, the people who are spending all of this money are going to make a lot of money from it out of state. And we have to make sure that if something's going to end up on our ballot, that we can do the research to see that it is coming from somebody in our state. Because at the end of the day, we have to have those safeguards in place. And at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to have 66 people go and vote. If there is more than 66 people going to vote for something, there's an issue with it. And so I think that my wife tells me I say at the end of the day too much. It's just what I say. But I do believe that, putting in safeguards is something, but we still need to make sure that the people who are doing the things for the right reasons in our state are able to get those things on the ballot. Thank you.
Mike?
The Constitution says we the people. If the people don't have the right to bring things to a vote, then we kind of lose our democracy. There is a good argument about out-of-state people coming in, doing different things, signing people up, let's change the law, let's do this, let's do that. I think it's almost like the transparency thing. You have to look really close at what's going on in the state to make sure that we're doing what's right for the people. And as an elected official, whether it be a senator or a representative, that's what you guys have voted for, whether you vote, whoever you vote for. And so there's a checks and balances, so to speak, as far as I'm concerned, but I think I would be for reform of what's going on, but I still think we the people at the whole top of the mountain is the most important thing. The constituents are the most important thing, and what they think and what they want, that's what we're here, that's what you elect us to do, work for you, and that's what I'll do, but I am for the reform part.
All right, thank you, Mike. Before we go on to question 6, I've noticed we've had a couple of dignitaries come into our room here. Mayor, would you please stand up and give everybody a wave? Mayor of Waldron, Arkansas, appreciate you coming and by here. And then a guy that has been an incredible help to me down there, somebody that's a sounding board, giving me good advice most of the time, and who has truly represented this district, his district, and that's Senator Terry Rice. Terry, would you stand up, please? I appreciate Terry Rice. I mean, he was in when I showed up. He's still in. I think, well, you're going on 40 years or 40, how many years have you been down? No, we're lucky to have him. A guy that is balanced, common sense, and he's one of the people out here on this thing. And I truly mean it. I appreciate everything that he's done for me the years that I've been down there. He's been somebody that I could go to and get an opinion that I could trust. Thank you, Terry. Okay, we're going to move on to, I believe we've got question 6 coming up here, right? Somehow I moved both of them. All right, here's one that should be near and dear to all of us. This is about agriculture, regulations, and rural impact. Agriculture remains a critical part of Arkansas's economy, particularly in rural areas, and lawmakers are often asked to balance environmental regulations, property rights, and the economic realities facing farmers and landowners. How should the General Assembly approach agriculture policies and regulations to protect farmers and rural communities while also addressing environmental and infrastructure concerns? Let's start with Crystal.
The number one job as a representative would be to help protect and serve our farmers. And so one thing that when I look at this, I tend to be very much, like I said, free market. I'm almost libertarian when it comes to allow people to work and to take the handcuffs off of these farmers and let them do what they do best. Let them, we need to get rid of regulations, we need to open up. One thing I would love to see, which is not a state issue, but a federal one, is the Prime Act, which allows you to buy beef from a local processor without having a USDA inspection. The fact that we allowed the government to tell us that we had to ask their permission to buy a steak for Mike if I wanted to is crazy. How do we allow them that role in our lives? So I tend to be less regulation. The thing I would say though, as far as infrastructure concerns and protecting, I've had some conversations with some really smart people, a lot smarter than me, talking about their concerns for the state and when it comes to agriculture, and their biggest concerns are foreign actors and our weakness in our different infrastructures being attacked, whether that's our rice having a foreign genome entered into it or a disease placed into it, or hackers getting into water supplies, those sort of things. And I think my job is to make sure to protect and to be on the lookout to strengthen Arkansas to where we can mitigate those risks and we can be on the cutting edge. So I want to be getting out of the way of farmers and then trying to clear the path to let them be as successful as possible and to try and support them in the ways that we can.
Christina.
So I was raised on a farm. I watched my papa. We had a dairy farm turned cattle farm. I would watch my papa fix his tractor. He'd go down to the farmer. He worked at the farmer's co-op also. He'd go and fix his tractor. Nowadays, you can't do that. You know, those days of us being able to, you know, I need braces. Well, we'll just go sell a cow and get your braces. Those days are over. Or actually, right now in cattle is really good. But we've made it harder and progressively harder on the farmer. And when it comes to legislation on helping the farmers, these are some of the most important people, the most hard-working people. They can do everything right, and then we have a snowstorm, and then a whole bunch of stuff goes wrong for them. We need to make sure that we're listening to the people who are the experts in this, the farm bureaus, you know, other people who take a vested interest in what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, just like Crystal's saying, we have to be careful with who we're letting buy our land. We have to be careful with what they are doing, because if we don't, we're going to end up with a bigger problem and not being able to feed our people. And when we can't feed our people, those are bigger issues than we know. And so we need to make it easier on the farmer, and we need to help them. If we're going to tell them that they're going to be the backbone of our country, we need to treat them like they're the backbone of our country. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike?
Well, this is a great question, very near and dear to me, because most of you out here that know me know that I am a farmer. I'm a cow-calf operator and a small business owner. For years, we have just taken what the market has given us and just been beaten by some of the things that I think are important. To start off with, there's 1,500 acres at the foot of Pettigene Mountain that's owned by Argentinians. We've got to stop these foreign entities from coming in here and buying this farm ground. The governor, I have to give her props. She did a great job along with the legislators to run China out of the plot, what they bought when they bought into Monsanto, making them sell that property. I think that's a great thing. We have to continue to do that. We have to continue to guard our property here in the state of Arkansas as well as the nation. We have Dan Wright. He's the leader of Farm Bureau. They do tremendous things go in the right direction and take care of our farmers and our farm ground and our, what's going on with farming. But one of the things that's devastated the cattle market until lately is we have a monopoly. We have 4 major packers that own 84% of the market. They basically dictate what we get and how we get it. Everybody wonders why cow prices are so high. For the last 10 years, the monopolies have run us out of business. They've stolen our beef. We're paying, just say a 5-weight calf brings $5 a pound. 18 months ago, that same calf would bring $1.30. So they've stolen that much money from our farmers and ranchers as a big packer. I mean, what's that, $3.70 a pound they've stolen for 10 years? Because we're still all buying beef at the grocery store. My cattle are being sold. There's just tons and tons of things we could talk about as far as the legislator. I want to go up there and I want to stand for what's right for our farmers and ranchers, and including in that is small business. Small businesses touched by farm and agriculture, whether it be buying seed or feed or fertilizer. All that's touched by the farmer, and there's only like 1% of us. Thank you.
Brent?
This is a great question. Every family in our district is touched by the ag industry somehow or another. I've got a small cattle farm myself, about 35 mama cows, and the cattle market is pretty good right now. It's the best it's been in 20 years. But I honestly think this should be the floor for the cattle market. There's no way. I've got to have my tractors, I've got to have my trailers, I've got to have my hay balers, I've got to have all that all ready to run my business. But if I was to go buy the land, build a fence around it, buy tractors, buy balers and tedders and rakes, and then buy cattle, and then go to the market with these, the market the way it is right now, you still wouldn't make money. This should be the floor where we're at, and it should only get better from here, even though it's better than it's been in 20 years. I've met with a Farm Bureau lobbyist at the Capitol, and I told him, I said, every family in this district is touched by the chicken, cattle, or tree industry. Somehow or another, it's chicken, cows, and trees. That's what we got in District 52. And they agreed. I said, first we got to protect those industries at all costs, and then we got to bring in other industries to build off of those. And we got some great Farm Bureau lobbyists working at the Capitol. Also went to Mr. Dan Wright's house, sat down and talked to him about the ag industry. It's a huge industry here we got to protect. So how are we going to do that? First, I think we need to talk about some things our legislator has done to benefit our ag industry. In 2021, they did the Food Freedom Act, which means, kind of like what Crystal was talking about, now a farmer can sell direct to a consumer without having to go through all the government red tape to do that. That really helped our farmers out. That's something the legislators did that was great. And then in 2025, they did the sales tax exemption card for our farmers. Now, all the farmers I go around and talk to, they said they would love to see a lot more stuff added to that, right? But it is a start. Now they got a card they can carry around and they can get tax exempt for stuff like Oklahoma does. That's why we lose so much business to Oklahoma. People go to Oklahoma and buy parts, they buy equipment, they buy all that because it's tax exempt there. So they carry, even though they live in Arkansas, they carry an Oklahoma sales tax exemption card. And we're losing a lot of revenue because of that. So our legislators did the right thing. Man, I'm already out of time. If you want to know more, I'll talk to you afterwards about that.
Thank you very much. But no, you're on the right track on this thing. There's a lot more that needs to be done. I think, again, these guys, whoever goes down there, it's going to have to be addressed. One of the problems you have that if a farmer, by chance, makes a profit, well, here comes the taxes. And they're going to strip away as much of that money as they possibly can. And that's why you see so many farmers are constantly in this debt scenario, because they know that they need to do something to try to protect that little bit of money that they've made. So they'll go buy new equipment. They'll go do this. They'll invest it in other things and stuff. And so there's debt there. But that's how they're spending their profits and things when they do have one. And it's just a cycle that is so hard to try to break out. The other thing is overseas markets have got to open. These countries that basically put tariffs on our farm products that are so high that we can't compete, that's got to be ripped down. And again, I don't care if you like Trump or not. That's one of the things, despite the pain, that's one of the things that tariffs can help us do. I just hope that it's more focused on agriculture because our farmers need it. And if you think prices are high now, let the row crop go under. See the impact that it has on the chicken industry. and how much it's going to cost. It'll make beef look like cheap when you start to go try to buy a chicken that they can't feed anymore. It's all tied together. And we heard some great answers here, and they've got some major challenges in front of them when they go down there. Dan, you don't have another follow-on question that you want to? I'm giving you a chance, man. You love to talk. Okay.
I don't want to make any enemies from these folks back here.
Okay, well, you've seen it. You're my witness that I allowed a chance for Dan Wright to speak again. And to his credit.
That's all that I'm looking at for you, okay?
Yeah, he's going to run for something pretty soon. We're going to get into the next cross-question segment. It's been kind of a cross-country race here. The cross-question segment, where, again, one candidate will be selected at random to ask a question of one opposing candidate. The question must relate to the responsibilities of this office. The asking candidate will have 1 minute. The responding candidate will have 2 minutes. No rebuttals, no follow-up questions will be permitted. And then I reserve the right to redirect the question if needed. Okay, here, we're going to do the old hat trick again.
Got 4 names in here.
All right. Dan Wright. No, it's Mike. Mike. You get to, you won the draw. You get to ask another candidate the question of your choice as long as it's related to state representative, the job of state representative.
I'm going to direct this at Brent Montgomery. Brent, you talked about the sales tax issue with the card and all that. How would you go about getting other things put on that card, say, where we didn't pay sales tax on fence material or bearings for a disc or whatever? What would your process be for that?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of like the LEARNS Act, right? They had to put something in place, and now they got to go back and make amendments to that, see what's working and what's not working. I think we had to do the same thing with the sales tax exemption card. You had to get something in place, and then you go talk to your farmers and your constituents and say, what else would you like to see added to this? What else can we afford to add to this? What is Oklahoma doing? Oklahoma's got a method we can kind of follow if we can afford to do that. So right now, like for instance, a farmer can go out and buy a flatbed that's not sales tax exempt unless he buys a flatbed that's got hay spikes on it. If he buys one that's got hay spikes on it, now it's sales tax exempt. So, and again, farming material, stuff like that. If you're a farmer and you got a tax ID number showing that you're a farmer and you're tax exempt on other things like seed, fertilizer, feed, and all that, you should be able to get access to this card. Now, how we add stuff to that card, how do we take stuff away from that card? It all goes through legislation. It all goes through committees and all that kind of stuff. But I think it starts with talking to your constituents, talking to your farmers, and seeing what they're seeing other states are doing that Arkansas is not doing. What are they still going to Oklahoma to purchase? And what are we losing out on in Arkansas because they're still going to Oklahoma to purchase this because Oklahoma offers this and we don't? So it's just legislation. It's just going through and amending stuff and creating legislation to help our farmers out. That's what it all boils down to. But to know what to do and what not to do starts with communicating with your farmers, which is our job to represent them.
All right, stay up there, Brent. You can go ahead and use your 1 minute closing now. You can go ahead and begin closing.
Okay, so what I would like to say in closing is, again, I am a small business owner. Me and my wife started a company 14 years ago. Again, with $9, we built it into a big business in Plainview, Arkansas. We got about 32 employees now. I'm serving my 4th term on the Quorum Court in Yell County. I've been a firefighter for 20 years as well. Serve on several boards in the county, Yell County Fair Board, the Pee Wee basketball committees. I coach all these Pee Wee sports and board of directors at my church and all that. And none of that makes me a better representative than anybody else up here or a better candidate than anybody else up here. But what it does do is it shows I've always been a public servant. I've been a public servant for 20 years. I didn't just show up to run for office, right? And I'm going to keep serving in these capacities whether I win, lose, or draw on this election. So I think even though it doesn't mean I'm going to be a better representative than anybody else on this stage, I think it shows you where my heart is. I am a public servant. This is nothing else but another branch in that. and want to go serve my district. And we would appreciate your support on March 3rd.
Mike, your turn, Mike.
In closing, again, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. I'd like to thank Waldron News for putting us on, Marcus for keeping everybody straight up here. My name is Mike Jones. I am a farmer and rancher. I want to bring common sense back to Little Rock. I think it's leaving us, as our distinguished legislators are leaving there. I think our common sense is leaving. We have a lot of younger people coming in from Northwest Arkansas, Little Rock, and changing the game when the playing field is still way out here with constituents in rural Arkansas. I'd like to have you vote March the 3rd. I'm going to ask for it, and hope you support us. Thank you.
All right. Christian?
Once again, my name is Christian Thompson. You know, I graduated high school in this district, went over to Arkansas Tech, got a degree in political science, had opportunities to go into politics, but when I got out, I realized that I didn't like the way that people were in politics. And so now I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I don't know what the world's gonna look like in 20 years when it's time for them to live in it. And so, you know, me and my wife, we've been together for 10 years, been married for 8 of them. She's the love of my life, and the thing is, guys, one thing about me is I'm going to do the hard thing. Because one thing that we need out here is more voters. And so right after this election, what I wanna do is turn right back around, knock every single door in this district, and tell every single person who is not registered to vote that we need you to get registered to vote. Because at the end of the day, I need you to help me down there. And if we have 75% of our people registered to vote, guys, they have to help us. Because I'm telling you this, nobody's gonna give us anything. But one thing I promise you we're gonna do is I'm gonna build value. I do that every day in what I've done. Thank you.
Crystal?
Our family has a life verse. It's that a man plans, but God directs his steps. And so in this journey, I started out where you are. I was a concerned voter, and I supported candidates that I was passionate about. And then I had the opportunity, our city council person was retiring, and I said, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna serve my community. And I've been doing that for 4 years. And then I heard our state representative was retiring, and I thought there are some issues on the state level that I really wanna get into, and I wanna help, and I wanna support. I have put myself out here, and I tell people all the time, they say, how do you think this is going? How do you feel about it? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I do serve the sovereign king of the universe, and so he's gonna put me exactly where I need to be. And so as I'm going out and talking to people, my goal is just to let you get to know me, to hear my positions on issues, to talk policy, to talk about how I'll be as a representative and how I'll serve you, and also just to make myself available to you. And so I would ask for your vote just like them, but I hope that it'll be the person that you feel like will represent you best. And so I'm Crystal Malloy, and I would love your vote as well.
Let's give them a big hand. Let me just say about the individuals that you have up here, you've got, unlike the Democrat Party, you've got a great choice of people to vote for here. It's not limited. Each and every one of these individuals, I'm impressed with how they run their campaigns. They've been upbeat, they've been positive, they've really tried to talk about policy and how that impacts you here in this district and how they intend to try to work to bring in better policy and everything. They've done a tremendous job, and this is hard work. It's going to be over with here in a month, at least the first part, because there will probably be a runoff. I'm just going to say that. With this many candidates, probably be a runoff. Make sure you vote in that runoff. Even if your guy that you voted for didn't make the runoff, go vote. Go vote and show up, because you don't have when you don't vote, you forfeit your right to complain. And everybody out here knows that. And again, I will just say one more time to Robbie, to Brittany, to Waldron News, what a great job over here with Dan and the other sponsors that we have. I don't have them in front of me. I know we've got a couple of, anybody here that was sponsored besides Farm Bureau? Anyway, there was a couple more of them, and I appreciate what they've done. And most of all, you guys coming out and wanting to know more about the person that's going to be running and basically representing you for District 52. Thank you very much. Have a great night, have a safe night, and go vote.